Hello guys and welcome to part 6 of Hello Python series, and today we're going to be looking at user inputs. Now user inputs is a form of interactive input which takes in meaningful data from a user, and the machine actually performs some action with it, right? Or your software actually performs an action with it. So in Python we have a built-in function called inputs, right? So let's begin. I've put my built-in function input inside the variable x, right? So what am I saying? That whatever the user inputs should be stored inside the variable x. So when we run this code, looks like my kernel is a bit slow, so I'm just gonna restart it. Okay, so let's run this code again. We are looking for a number. We want the user to input a number. This should actually be enter. So we can see enter a number, right? So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. So when we hit enter, now 1, 2, 3 has been stored inside x. Right? So if we come down here and I say x and run that, still telling me to input a number. So 1, 2, 3, enter, and you can see that x has the value or the string value of 1, 2, 3, right? Because it's in quotation marks. So whatever a user inputs into this function comes out as a string. So if you want to perform any mathematical operations on it, you need to convert it from a string type either to an int or a float type, right? So as we can see, when we enter a number 1, 2, 3, it gets stored in x. So we, the programmer, don't have to explicitly input the details. We actually want it to be interactive. So we want the user to actually fill in those details for us, right? So this is how we do that. So next one I want us to look at is the same thing. Basically, input, which is the function which takes in or which takes in the user information and stores it inside x. So like I said, as you can see here, it's within quotation marks, which means that it comes out as a string. So if I want to perform an operation on, let's say, x times 2, meaning I want to multiply whatever is in x times 2. So if it was a numerical value, when we multiplied by 2, we should actually get 2 times of x, right? But in this case, because it's a string format, we don't actually get that. So what do you think is going to happen here? So input a number, I say 4, I hit enter, and I get the output of 44. Why do I get the output of 44? Because the x at this point in time is still a string. Whatever you input is saved as a string. So in order for you to actually do a mathematical operation on it, you need to convert it from a string type to either a float or an int before you can perform a mathematical operation on it. So this operation just multiplied 4 2 times, right? So that's why we get the 44 here. So in case I wanted to actually do 2 times 4, I actually change the type of my input string to a numerical type. Then I multiply that by 2. So when I run this code, we actually get 8, which is true because 2 times 4 is 8. So because we've converted it, we can actually do mathematical operations on it. Same way we can also do division on it. When I say float x, I'm converting whatever is in x to a float type, and I'm dividing it by 2. And when I run that, I get 2.0, which is actually true. So other ways we can use user inputs are first of all, I have a first name. I want to take someone's first name, I want to take their last name, and then I want them to quit a program, right? So basically, first name is here. Let me just comment these ones out. Okay, so we say our variable name is first name, which means whatever is coming into this input should be our first name. We always make our variable names descriptive so that we understand what is actually put inside, right? So we say first name, which is assigned the function input, and then I'm prompting to the user by putting the string in here saying, what is your first name, right? So definitely I want you to input your first name. So when we run this code, we get the output of what is your first name. So if I type in, my first name is Glenn. So if I type in my first name and I hit enter, I'm expecting it to store it inside first name. So if I calm down here and just copy this and put it down here, this means that Glenn should be stored in what? First name. So if I check first name, as you can see right here, this comes out from this, which means that our first name Glenn has been stored inside. So I've stored the user input inside the variable name first name. So when I store it inside the variable name, I can now perform operations with it. Some ways we can do that is to actually validate a user and to see whether a user is actually valid or not, right? But before we do that, I want us to look at how Python works, in the sense that Python runs its code line by line. So it takes in each line at a time, right? So if I should run all of this code, just take this one out. And if I should run all of this code all over again, it tells me first name, Glenn, enter. It has stored it inside first name. It's asking me for my last name, Anum, enter. And it says, thank you, type exit to quit, right? So I say exit, and we're out of the system, right? We're out of that loop, can we say? Because it's reading the line by line, it forms a form of a loop, but there's no actual validation to actually see if the first name you're inputting is correct or wrong. We're just saying, first line, I want something in, second line, I want something in, third line, I want something in, right? So here's a gimmick way of using user inputs, and we're going to be using if statements, which are control statements, and in the upcoming videos we're going to actually go in depth into it. So this is just to show you how user inputs can be used in control structures to actually work to validate a user, right? So I have a little script or a little code here that I've written. So in username, I want the user to input their login, right? Potentially imagine this as an already set up system in your office, or your machine. When you enter your machine, when you go into your machine, you have to put in your username and password before you can log in, right? Because you want to secure your laptop or your desktop, right? So this is a way to validate. This is already set up system, and we have already 2 usernames on this machine. So only 2 people can access this machine at this point in time. So I have user 1, and I've named user 1 Glenn. I've assigned it Glenn. And I've assigned user 2, and I've assigned it the name Gloria. So only those 2 usernames can have access to our system, right? So how do we make sure of that? That's what we're trying to do. That is our aim. Only these 2 users should have access to our system, else reject the person or deny access to the person. So how do we do that? We use control structures to actually do that. And I'm going to be using the if-else statements to actually do that control. So what are we doing? I'm saying that if username, which is our inputs that our user is going to input, is equals, remember the double equal sign means you're actually equating it, right? So equals to username 1, which is Glenn, print access granted. So it means if I input Glenn, I'm expecting to have access to the system. Else, if the username is equals to user 2, which is Gloria, then print welcome to the system. Else, this means that apart from these 2, anything else, print access denied, right? Then ask the user to input another name again, right? So let's run this and see how it actually works. So it says login. Glenn is there, but remember, if you've looked in our previous videos, we said that Python is actually case sensitive. So in our system, Glenn is in uppercase, but I'm going to write a lowercase. And let's see, will it actually validate me? Will it give me access to the system or not? What do you think? It tells me access denied. Why is that? Because Python is case sensitive. So if I wanted to get access, I should have used the same way in which I stored it in the first place, which was a capital G over here instead of a small letter G, So because it's case sensitive, I've been denied access into the system, and it tells me login again. Okay, so I remember, hey, G is in capital G. Glenn is in capital G, so Glen, enter, and then nothing happens. Why is that? Because that's the end of my control, and I've not put any line of code under there to do a loop or to validate anybody else, right? So that's where my code ends. So this is a nice way to show you how to actually build a small system using the user inputs and conditional statements, and seeing how you can tweak it and move and condition it so that you get what you actually want your system to hold, right? So another way to do this, let's run this. I say Glenn, small case again. We are expecting access denied, right? And now I input the correct username, Glenn, and nothing happens here again. It just takes it in like that. So what can we do to rectify something like this? What we can do is actually add another if statement for the two users again. If I am validated, then give me access. If not, deny me access. So how did I do that? In our previous code, this is where we ended. With this code I've highlighted out, we ended at username input. So when I inputted this, nothing happened. So I came below and added another if statement and said, if the username, and I'm doing multi-line assignments in the sense that I'm doing multiple things on the same line. First of all, I'm saying if username is equals to username 1, or, which is another condition, right? Not end. If I was saying end, it means that if one is validated and the other one is not, then don't even give access. But we're saying or means that if username 1 or username 2 is valid, grant me access. So let's run this code again. Remember in the previous one, when we logged in with the right access, nothing happened. So because we've conditioned the if statement underneath again, I'm expecting that we should be given an opportunity to validate ourselves. So when we run this code, it says login. I'm gonna input the wrong one now, which was Glenn. Okay, access denied, login again. I'm putting in the right username now, and now it tells me access granted. So if you see how, you can see how powerful user inputs are and how conditional statements are and how they really work together to really make a program a bit more robust. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is the end of the Python basics. We're actually going to the intermediary part of Python in the next video. If you do like this, like and subscribe, and I'll see you then. Cheers.